Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to be making a Miso Lingonberry glazed salmon with a Spam fried rice. You can't knock it until you've tried it because Spam fried rice is delicious. It's something I'd never used Spam before. Like what, 4 years ago? It was like COVID, and I tried it, and it is now like the best way to make fried rice. So we're gonna start by sauteing up some onions. We're gonna get our veggies prepped for our fried rice and our Spam, and then we're gonna make our glaze for our salmon. And then we'll pan fry our salmon off, and then we'll drench it in this lovely glaze for it. So let's get our onions going. I think I'm just going to use half an onion here. So we're going to do half a yellow onion, and I'm going to do a smaller kind of dicing on here. That way we'll get little bits of, onion flavor throughout the fried rice. And with this fried rice, you can either prep fried or white rice like the day before to make fried rice, or you can get frozen rice. And those are both great options for it. You just don't want to use freshly cooked rice because it will give you mushy fried rice. So we're going to add in, I'm going to do a little bit of olive oil to begin with, and then we will add in a little bit of butter to give that fried rice that little extra specialness that makes it so delicious. But it doesn't need to be all butter. Okay, we've got our onions in here. Looks like I had one run away. Did I? No. And let's get those a quick toss up first. Kind of coat them in here. And then I'm going to mince up some garlic, some to go in our fried rice and some to go in our glaze on here. So I'm just going to mince it up at the same time because it's a little bit easier that way. So I'm going to have probably a good tablespoon and a half from these. There's a bunch of little cloves and then a ginormous one. But we're going to mince these up, and I'm going to just divide it between my two pans here. One for, or my pot, my little sauce pot over here. One to make our glaze, and then one for the fried rice. Make sure I turned on my stove, and I did. And I know I was like, I went shopping today and I was like, oh, so many options for dinner. But whenever I buy fish, I always like to use it up fairly quickly because that's one of the proteins that are going to go bad the quickest in my fridge. So I always typically have fish either the first or second day after a shopping trip. My husband hasn't realized that yet, but but I do buy fish every single week. Okay, we're going to get it nice and small. That means, more flavor will come out of our mince. Here we go. That should be good. Okay. I'm not going to add it into my pan yet with the onions because I do want them to get a chance to kind of caramelize up a little bit. I'm going to turn my temperature down now to a 4 because metal pans conduct a lot of heat much quicker than a non-stick pan. So if you have your metal pans too high, you're more likely to burn your onions and whatnot. Okay, we're going to use a little bit of butter in our glaze for our salmon. I'm going to use about, I think, maybe 2 tablespoons or a tablespoon and a half. I don't need a whole lot, but just enough to kind of bind with the honey and bring everything together and to infuse the garlic. So I'm going to let it start to melt back here, and then we're going to add some of our garlic in there so it can kind of infuse into the butter and toast up a little bit so it's not like we're adding a raw garlic on it. And while we're waiting, let's prep up some more of our veggies for our stir fry. And then we'll cook off our salmon once we've got our stir fry veggies made and we're just on the rice part because the salmon doesn't take too long to cook on here. we have, I'm going to cut my fillets up because I went to the store and I got like 2.5 pounds of salmon, but they're in these huge fillets, which are just way too big for, single portions. So I'll cut them up and, in half. That way everyone will have a good, like 6-ounce portion of salmon.
You have a question? Have you ever done salmon in a bourbon sauce?
Yes, I actually did a bourbon, like a maple bourbon sauce, not too long ago. Now it wasn't on salmon. I did it on it was shark. We did it on with our shark. And my husband and I, we love the sauce, but my kids were not a big fan of the bourbon sauce. But I love it. I think like as my kids get older, they'll probably appreciate those flavors a little bit more. But yes, it is kind of lovely and delicious. And this is kind of giving you, I'm going to be using a little bit of honey in here with some miso and some soy sauce. And then the lingonberry, which is going to add a little tart and sweetness to it. It's kind of, if you've never had a lingonberry, think of like a tender, really small cranberry, or if you've had currants, it's kind of similar to currants as well. But they're very popular in Sweden. You typically have it as a little side dish with, a lot of time you'll do like a mustard coated salmon with a lingonberry sauce, or your meatballs with a lingonberry sauce, which I was never a huge fan of because I'm not a huge sweet and savory person. And I also love to do Swedish pancakes with lingonberry jam in the middle. Okay, we've got our carrots diced up here, just 2 ones, nice and small dice because, fried rice, you don't want it too prominent. Now that my butter is nice and melted, I'm going to turn it down low because I don't want it to turn into a brown butter, but I wanted it melted before I added in my garlic. That way my garlic wouldn't touch too much. And I put in about a tablespoon of minced garlic in here. So we're going to do the same thing into our fried rice. Let me give my garlic a little bit of a swirl here.
You have a question? Are you Swedish?
I am Swedish in the sense that my mother is from Sweden. So I'm not full-blown Swedish, but I am 50% Swedish and then 25% Norwegian. So there's a lot of Scandinavian in me. And then same thing with my husband. He actually has some Swedish in him, which he doesn't like to admit, but he's got Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish and German in him. So we've got a lot of, Scandinavian background influences in our family. And we celebrate Santa Lucia, so we'll be doing that in almost a little less than a month. And as you notice, you'll see I've got a lot of Swedish Christmas decorations up right now. The little tomten, and you can see some dalahästar, which are the Swedish horse, but they're not actually a traditional Swedish thing. We just kind of lump them all together. Okay, now that our garlic's had a chance to kind of crisp up in our pan, I'm going to add in my carrots. And again, a nice small dice on your carrot, because with fried rice, you don't want it to be, too in your face, like too big of chunks. You want like lots of nice tender little bits throughout. So there will be a good amount of veggies in here, but they're just going to be minced up and kind of spread throughout. Okay, it looks like my garlic is infusing into my butter wonderfully. I'm going to see. I think I'm going to add my peppers in, and then I'll do my Spam, but we'll do that. So we're going to slice up our peppers and I'll add them in so that they can get a nice little kind of toast up. I'm using a mix of sweet peppers, and then I'm using the last of my shishito peppers, which are pretty common in Asian cuisines. They are a lovely pepper in the sense that they are mostly mild, but apparently 1 in 10 peppers is spicy. So, you never know if you're going to be the one that gets that spicy shishito pepper, but the rest are really mild on there. And I always find it's funny is my it's always my son Torrin who always seems to get the spicy pepper, and he's like, "Are these jalapenos?" And I'm like, "No, they're not spicy at all." And everybody else is like, "They're not spicy," and he always has the one that's like the flaming hot shishito pepper. And I don't even know how it's possible that only 1 in 10 is spicy. Like I don't know. It must be some way where how many peppers grow on a plant and one has all the capsaicin in it or something like that. Okay, we're going to dice up our peppers nice and small as well.
You have a question. When are you going to be making your famous chili next?
My famous chili, I typically make that chili only once a year, and that's on the Super Bowl. And because I feel like I make like so much of it, and it lasts for it, but it's always I make it every year on the Super Bowl, and I don't know why I don't ever make it any other time of the year, but that's just how it's always been. It's just my Super Bowl chili that I make, so you'll have to wait until the Super Bowl. Now I did make a white chicken chili the other day, which was delicious. I even converted my husband to it, so I'm always every time I get him to eat something that he thinks he's not going to like and he likes it, it's always a win in my book. So you can always try that out. But this is I do have a video of it because I made it. We did a live stream on Super Bowl last year of our little Super Bowl kind of feast prep that we did before the game. And you can find the recipe there. It's super simple, but I have won 3 different contests. Well, 3 official contests with it. And then I've won the work chili contest a couple times on it when I used to teach. But it is so good. So good. One of my friends likes to call it like the $1 million chili because it has a lot of different cuts of meat in it, which makes it a little bit more expensive. It's not your average, ground beef chili. It has lots of different cuts of meat. And I think that's what makes it so delicious, and a wide variety of beans.
Are you going to go live on Thanksgiving?
Most likely we will probably not go live at all that week. Next week, I can't believe it's already next week. We're going to be touch and go with our kind of schedule. We have a bunch of family in. We are going to try to get some in definitely mornings because I do like to cook up a bunch of like foods for my family, and I bring them over to my mom's house because that's where everybody's kind of getting together, and we'll do some lunchtime streams. But we will be mainly at my parents' house with all my siblings and my nieces and nephews there. So we won't necessarily be doing our normal streaming schedule. Here we go. Okay. Let me get this guy. How did he? Missed him completely. Okay. We'll let our butter, just giving that garlic plenty of time to kind of infuse into the butter, and then we'll make that sauce. It won't be long to make it. Now, for our secret and most delicious ingredient in our fried rice, Spam, the one and only. Now, I can tell you, I had never had Spam before 2020. And I was all skeptical about it, but it is salty and it is delicious, and it makes a wonderful, side piece in your fried rice. My kids absolutely love it. You kind of dice it up nice and small, and then we'll sear it off with the veggies, and then it will be in there. And it's just going to give you this kind of salty base type. It's almost like if you've ever had pork belly fried rice. This is kind of like halfway there. But it's absolutely delicious. When I make this, Teddy loves to go and pick out all the Spam. And I remember the other day I made fried rice without it, and he was like, "Where's the Spam?" And I was like, "Oh." I said, "Fried rice can be without Spam too." And he was very disappointed that I didn't have my Spam in the fried rice. This is the reason I actually started incorporating Spam in fried rice is during COVID, we were getting these snack boxes, like Universal Yums, like Snacks Around the World. And I planned, just because we were all stuck at home, I made these giant feasts where whatever country we got, I did a bunch of research and I cooked up like this huge feast, like 5 or 6 different dishes from that country. And I made the dishes so that we could then eat the snacks and eat like an authentic as can be dish from that country. And then I know Hawaii is not a country, but one of our boxes was Hawaii, which is not, again, not a country, but they had Spam fried rice as part of their dishes, and apparently it's a very popular dish in Hawaii, with the addition of spring peas, but nobody in my family but me likes peas, so I omit them. But they are a favorite. It is a favorite, and it has stayed a staple in my house. So most of the time, you can always find a can of Spam in my pantry.
Marla and Mary sent you gift.
Well, thank you, Marla and Mary. We appreciate that a lot here. Again, I've added in about a tablespoon, maybe a little smidge more, into my pan so I can really get a good crisp up on my Spam here. We're going to let it melt and get that going. And while we're doing that, let's work on our glaze here that we're going to add into it.
Have you ever cooked with purple sweet potatoes or Japanese sweet potatoes?
Yes, I have. I actually really love purple sweet potatoes. I've done purple sweet potato mash. I've made sweet potato muffins that are purple, although they turn out more brownish than purple. But I have. I actually, and this is kind of crazy, but when all my kids were little, one of my favorite things was making homemade baby food for them. Absolutely loved it. It was like an addiction, I swear. I kept like wanting to create new recipes and all sorts of things. And I would use purple sweet potatoes all the time in their recipes. Why not? We're going to add into our butter, our garlic butter here. I'm going to do about, I want to say a tablespoon, a little bit over a tablespoon of lingonberries. So lingonberries, it's a jam. It's very tart. It's not super sweet, but it does have a little bit of sweetness to it. And it's going to add a little bit of this fruity flavor to our kind of our glaze that we're going to do here. And then I'm going to add in about, because I want ginger, I'm going to do about a teaspoon and a half of ginger paste. We'll mix it up. My temperature is nice and low, but I do want these to kind of heat up and infuse together. I'll bring it there. Rub it really in. And I did only use a tablespoon of lingonberries, but if you want to go even stronger on the fruit edge, you can. But I like to keep it with just a hint on it, so it's not so overpowering for the kids. Find if I go too crazy, there's a mutiny. Let me give this a good stir. Here. I'm going to turn that up just a smidge now. And then I've got some red miso paste that we're going to add in here. This is kind of, nice and salty. Adds that nice umami flavor to it. We're going to use about a tablespoon. Kind of mix it up just a little bit. Get it to kind of dissolve in there. And then we're going to add in some coconut aminos. Remember, I used it up last time, so I have a new bottle. This is coconut aminos, is kind of a sweet, little bit of savory, kind of a liquid. It's just really nice in Asian cooking. It works really well. We're going to add in about a tablespoon and a half. I've got some sesame oil. This will add that kind of nutty flavor to it as well. We're going to add in about a teaspoon and a half. I don't put too much because it's pretty strong in flavor, but I do like a little bit of it. And kind of mix it here. There. Just kind of smashing up any of those chunks of miso, because it sometimes takes a minute to bring it down. And we're going to use some Japanese barbecue sauce, which don't think of barbecue sauce, think of a sweet and slightly thicker soy sauce. And we're going to put in about 1.5 tablespoons of this to 2 tablespoons. I'm also going to be using this in my fried rice. And I really love this brand. I feel like it's gotten really popular recently, but I feel like theirs is got the nice sweet and salty balance. Let's give that a good stir. We're still going to add a few more things to that, but I want to get my Spam kind of tossed here. We're going to turn it up a little bit more so we can start to get a good kind of crispy sear on it. And let it kind of cook up with our peppers in there, our carrots and our onions and our minced garlic. Okay. We're going to add a little bit of honey. So we have some lingonberries in there as some of the sweetness, but you're going to add a little bit of honey into this as well because this is a sweetened kind of glaze that we want to kind of put over it. You only need about 1 tablespoon. But you want that sweetness in there with the lingonberry to balance out the saltiness of the, barbecue sauce and just balances everything together. Okay, let me give a little. That is fantastic. So we're just going to let that simmer nice and low. Doesn't need anything else on it. While we are waiting, we can get ready to season up our, we're going to do kind of a dry rub on our salmon. And then after we cook it, we are going to glaze it with our yummy lingonberry miso glaze. Whoops. Good thing it had the lid on. Okay, let's slide these guys around up here. And I need to clear a little space. I'm getting a little congested over here. So on my salmon, we are going to do kind of a slight, not a complete dry rub on it, but a fairly dry rub. I don't want it too wet because I want it to kind of sear off nicely on it. So we're going to use a little bit of ginger powder, onion powder, and some garlic salt. And then we'll sear them off with a little bit of olive oil with some sesame oil in it. Here we go. We're starting to get a nice little brownish sear on our Spam. So we're getting there. So I've got my ginger powder here. Be very careful when you're sprinkling this on. A little bit of ginger goes a long way. So just kind of lightly dust it over the top. But I do like to add it because I feel like it really brings that kind of those miso flavors together. But again, a nice light dusting over it. So just a smidge. We probably used, less than 1/2 teaspoon for all of it. And we're going to use a little bit of onion powder. This is going to help give it a nice kind of crust on the salmon when you sear it up. We'll sprinkle it over. And then my garlic salt. And I don't think I opened it up. Oh, I did. And then we'll sprinkle a little bit, just a smidge, because we're going to be adding the glaze on it, which has a bit of saltiness. So you really just want a little bit for that garlic flavor. There we go. And that's all we're going to do on it for it. So let's heat up our pan here. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in here with a smidge of like 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. So you get that sesame flavor, but it's not in your face. So since this is a big 12-inch pan, I put about 1.5 tablespoons. And then we're going to do about 1 teaspoon of sesame oil in here. That sesame oil will, when it starts to heat, you're going to get a really nutty scent from it, but it's going to be just lovely. There we go. We're starting to get this nice kind of seared off edge on our Spam there. Looking beautiful. So I'm going to grab my snap peas and we're going to throw those in here. On there. My husband's like, oh, snap peas. Got to have a little green in there. So I find snap peas snow peas, broccoli, or cabbage are all great options to throw in here. This is what we're doing today. Or regular peas. I like these. My kids like these a little bit more because even though they're a snap pea, they don't consider them a pea. They actually like to pop out the beans inside and eat them. So they don't need too long to saute up here before they start to get tender. And when we put the rice in there, that kind of helps steam them up a little bit. But you'll know that they're ready when they go from this kind of whitish green color to a deep dark green. And that's when they're going to be tender and crisp. You don't want to overcook them to where they go into a yellowish, brownish green. Okay. And then we'll fry up our eggs on one corner in just a second here. Make sure. Once our pan is nice and hot, I'm going to sear off my salmon. But again, I'm going to cut these down the middle because these are huge fillets and they'll be really cumbersome to try to fry up. So I'm just going to cut them straight down the middle. That way we'll have them portioned up already, because this is 2.5 pounds of salmon right here. So they are really big fillets. Let's see, we'll do this one a little bit. Okay, that's more manageable for everybody. Although I'm sure my son Torrin would eat a huge fillet on his own. He loves salmon.
You have a question, is that skin on salmon?
It is skin on salmon. I like both. Skin on salmon does keep, when you're searing it off, it does keep it a little bit more juicy because it kind of traps in that moisture on the bottom. But they are both kind of great options to use. Okay, since that's there, I'm going to drop a little dot of water in, and if it sizzles, then I will know that we are ready to start searing off our salmon. Not quite, almost there though. There we go. Give it a swirl down. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit to about a 5 because I don't want to sear it off on too high of a heat, but I do want my oil nice and hot before it. With fish, always fry off the side that you want presented up first. So presentation side down. So we'll do our skin the second one, but the side that we want pretty for everybody, we're going to do face down. And that's because your face down cooking, your first cooking is going to give you the prettiest sear off on it. And right now I'm putting in my 4 thickest salmon fillets because they will be the one that sits the longest, and that sitting is going to allow them to continue to cook. And so you want to do your fat ones first and then your thinner ones if you have to do it in batches. Okay, these are starting to look pretty darn good. Now, what I like to do, I don't put my eggs in, like just throw them in there and crack. I push all of my veggies to one side, and then this side over here is going to be my egg scrambling, because I find if you try to scramble your eggs in with your veggies, it never works out well. It gives them a weird texture. But you want to make sure your side of your pan is well buttered or oil. That way your eggs don't completely stick to the pan.
Oh, where did you get the salmon?
The salmon, this is from Publix. So just one of their little things. It was on sale today. So I'm a sucker for the sales. You know, when you've got to feed about 9 mouths every single day, anything that's on sale is wonderful. There we go. And I'll scramble them in just a second, but I do like to get them all in here first before I scramble them. My kids love the fried eggs, so I do a lot. I think I'm doing 10 eggs here. I typically plan on about 1 egg per person, but then with my kids, I add a little bit more. And then let me see, I think, yep, I'm going to just grab it. 1 little eggshell down here. There we go. I'm going to rotate. And I'll know that my salmon is about ready to flip over is when I'll start to see a little brown crusting forming up on the side of it. And when that white hits the cooked of the meat, gets about halfway through. Okay, now we're going to go through. I'm going to poke each yolk. This is just going to allow it to scramble in a little bit better. And then we'll get these guys scrambling up. And again, you don't have to remove all your veggies from your pan to do this. Just push them over to one side. But whatever you do, don't just dump your eggs in with the veggies and scramble them with the veggies like all together, because your eggs don't get into that nice thicker chunk parts. It just doesn't cook up quite as right. There we go. Steal this guy out and over. Okay, we'll let that sit here for just a second. And I'm just going to check my salmon here and see how it is looking. I realized Jack ran off with almost all of my dishcloths. Oh, looking pretty darn good. Look at that beautiful sear on there. Nice golden brown edge on it. Beautiful. Now, when you do with the skin on, just be careful. Sometimes there's trapped liquid or moisture under that skin, which causes it to kind of blister and pop up. So just be more cognizant of that when you are, if you're using a skin on salmon, you can get a little splatter or a pop effect. I always just keep a good distance from it. So as you can see, our eggs are starting to scramble up here. I'm going to turn up my temperature just a little bit faster so that it can cook up. There's the pop I was telling you about. It's just there's a pocket of liquid that traps underneath that skin, and it will pop just a little bit. They do make, you can get, in high school we had one, but they're like those splatter screens where you can put it right over the top to prevent that. You get used to it. Here we go. So our eggs are starting to get the scramble up here for it. And I'm just I'm pulling my pan over here because my burner, I want it more on just the eggs than my whole veggies, so that I can scramble those up without having to stir these vegetables up too much. And that's kind of the nice thing about using such a large pan. It gives me a lot more. It's bigger than my burner, so I have a lot more on my cooking space to work with. And we've got this pretty much almost done. And once these eggs are scrambled up, we'll mix them all together with the veggies, and then we'll add in our rice. There we go. Just about. You just need to make sure you get to the a thick scramble part before you bring them all together. I'm going to turn my heat down to a 4 now, and now we can mix everything together. But you just don't want to do it until your eggs are fully scrambled, because what they do is they just kind of lose all shape, and then you just get little bits of egg everywhere instead of a nice big egg chunk. There we go. So now that I have my egg in here, and we will be adding spices, but I always add them once we add the rice into it. I'm going to turn this down, but our salmon looks like it's ready, so let me grab a plate. And we're going to transfer this over onto a plate, and then we'll glaze them up. And remember, these are going to continue to cook Look, we already lost the skin on that one, but they'll be delicious. It's kind of what's so nice about the salmon and the skin is that skin literally acts as like this little protection thing that allows it to trap in the moisture and keeps it just absolutely delicious. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this a couple of times, but you're gonna spoon this lingonberry miso glaze over the top. You want to do it right now while it's hot so it soaks in some of that flavor, and then we will do it again right before we serve it, but definitely get a little bit on there to have that flavor in. Okay, let's get these thinner ones down. These are going to cook a lot faster than our thicker ones. And remember our basic, we have just a very simple seasoning on our salmon, just some ginger, onion powder, and garlic salt. And remember, do the pretty side down first, so skin up and the face down. And now we're going to be ready to add in our rice to our kind of our vegetable mixture here. I love to use frozen sticky rice that I've de-thawed, but you can cook up white rice the day before and throw it in there. But do not, and I'm going to say this a couple of times, cook up rice and use it. That will give you the mushiest fried rice because there's just too much moisture in it. So you either need to use old rice or this rice works really well, which means I don't have to cook up the day before. So I add in 2 packages. And you can get this just in the freezer section. This one's Innovation. P.F. Chang's makes a version of it. There's several different types of it. I just buy whatever's on sale. And we're going to mix those veggies in. And then we're going to use our Japanese barbecue sauce. And we're going to drizzle that over because honestly, that makes the best seasoning on fried rice. With lo mein, I'll make a whole special marinade for my noodles, but for fried rice, I keep it really simple with the Japanese barbecue sauce and then a little bit of garlic salt. So we're just mixing it in. And now we'll mix in a little bit more, but we want to get our first little drizzle over. And you're just going to drizzle over. It's probably going to be about a tablespoon or 2 for the first round. I always kind of make it to where I see it's nice and brown. And then I'm going to turn up my heat just a little bit to about a 4 now and kind of mix it all to coat it together. And also one of the reasons why I don't make a marinade for my rice to go in there like I do with lo mein is with rice, the more liquid you add on it, the more chances you're going to get a mushy rice. So keeping it really simple with just the Japanese barbecue sauce is makes it to where it's perfect. I used to, before I found this stuff, I used to do like a sweetened soy sauce, but I find that soy sauce is just too salty for fried rice. It needs to be cut with a little bit of vinegar and sugar to get that right flavor to it. And I will say, I just love this stuff, but that just stuff works a lot better for it. There we go. I'll let that kind of steam cook a little bit here. I'm going to check. I'm looking like there's a pretty good crust on that one, so I'm going to flip them over because remember, these are much thinner, so they're going to cook a lot faster. Beautiful.
Do you need to thaw the frozen rice first?
Yes. So you can thaw it, leave it in their fridge until it's de-thawed, or you can, heat it up in the microwave. They're in steam pouches. Let me grab a spatula for this guy. He doesn't want to flip easy for me. There we go. So yes, you don't want to put it in frozen because that will just make your cook time a lot longer. Okay. I do have some green onions that we're going to add into our fried rice. And I might save a little bit to go over our salmon as well. I've got scissors over here. So I'm just going to snip off some green onions to add this fresh onion flavor. At the very end, I'm going to add a little bit more Japanese barbecue sauce and then some garlic salt as well. But I want to get these in here to add this.
Can you go over what's in the fried rice?
Yes, so we started off, we sauteed up half a yellow onion, 2 diced up carrots, some fresh garlic. We have shishito peppers, sweet peppers, snap peas, Spam, which is the special ingredient, eggs, and then our rice, and then Japanese barbecue sauce. So pretty simple. You just want to make sure you saute off all your vegetables and then your eggs first before you add in your rice. That way they get all of that nice flavor. There we go. Do a little bit more in here. And you don't need a whole lot. A little goes a long way. And then I find just a little bit of garlic salt. You don't need a lot, but it adds a different level of saltiness, which I think the combination of the two together work well. And we'll just sprinkle over, about a teaspoon or so. Mix these up. Beautiful. But you can see you get these really big chunks of egg in there. That's what my kids absolutely love, just having those big chunks. And that's really just making sure you scramble your eggs separate from your vegetables.
You have a question. What's the best way to cook your eggs so they're fluffy?
So I find that as long as you are keeping them and you let them sit for a little bit before you toss them, they should fluff up. Don't mix them in there. If you mix them in there, they won't get fluffy on there. You can also add in, if you want to, a little bit of water. It can make them a bit more fluffy on there, but I find just cooking them well enough to where you've got that fluffiness that you're not leaving them too snotty, which is the term that I like to call them. It gives them the fluffier. So if they're undone, they're not going to be as fluffy, but then you don't want to cook them so hard that they get stiff. So it's kind of like that perfect, temperature thing. Okay, let's get this guy. We're going to put our next fillets over here. Luckily, these weren't as popping as our last ones because they're not quite as thick. And then we're going to add our Miso Lingonberry glaze. Let me get a little bit more room over here. There we go.
What's your favorite dish tonight?
Oh, you know what? I really love making, no, not lemon tarts. I hate making lemon tarts. It's my husband's favorite dish, but it's the most labor intensive dish ever because you have to hand push every little tart. And he's not content with a dozen. He needs 5 dozen lemon tarts that get eaten up in a day. So it's not lemon tarts. I really love making homemade pastas, like the pasta noodles and ravioli and all this. Right now I'm drizzling. This is our lingonberry miso glaze over it. So those little red balls that you see, those are lingonberries, which are a tart berry. So I say they have a similar flavor to a cranberry or a currant, but they're got a smoother texture, so they're not as chewy as a cranberry is. But that sweet tartness kind of pairs really well with the miso and the honey in there. Well, guys, we are ready to serve up. This is one of those meals that cooks up pretty quickly. So I'm going to give this one last toss. And let me get a spoon to taste it. Make sure I don't need to add anything else to it. And then we'll be ready. Perfect. So let me slide. We'll do a little shimmy this over here so I can plate up. I'm going to cut a little bit of my green onions to go over the top of these as well. Just add a little fresh onion flavor to this, kind of cut through the sweetness. You could also do, chives, which are a bit more fragrant than green onions. There we go. Okay, let me grab a plate. And let's get ready to serve up. For dinner tonight, we have our Spam fried rice that we filled with Spam, snap peas, shishito peppers, sweet peppers, onions, carrots, and lots of eggs. We seasoned with a Japanese barbecue sauce. And then we are going to be serving it with a lingonberry miso glazed salmon. We pan fried the salmon and then we drizzled this sweet and tangy and savory miso lingonberry glaze over it, made with some lingonberry jam, miso paste, Japanese barbecue sauce, ginger, garlic, to just have all these lovely flavors to go together and balance out for a delicious and simple dinner. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you just have to go to our page, search for what we made. So our lingonberry miso salmon with our Spam fried rice, and you can watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my all-clad pan. I love my 6-quart all-clad pan. It's perfect for frying rice, as well as my knives, cutting boards, all the different, pots and pans and knives and stuff I use in the kitchen I have in here for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.